What is your story with anti-Asian racism? Even before COVID struck, I was already being called names like the sea slur, dog eater, and more. Then when COVID struck, I was called super spreader and bat soup water. I would get stared at and yelled at for wearing masks in public, and I got blamed for COVID a lot. And then there's the part no one talks about, the over-sexualization. Getting compared to hentai was not the best way to flirt with me, and getting asked to see my Asian boobs and vagina was not good for me too. There was also the generalization of Asians. I was asked if I could speak Japanese, and when I answered no, they replied, "Oh, so you're not really Asian." Newsflash, we exist out of anime. I don't ask white people if they can speak German or English just because they're white. Overcoming racism has become a huge part of who I am now. I was literally named white skin in Chinese because traditionally, white skin is seen as beautiful and is seen as a beauty standard. So my Chinese name praises me for having white skin. Having to unlearn whitewashing and wanting to be any other race but Asian sucks. You have to overcome those external comments and realize that being Asian is part of your identity that you should be proud of.
Once, I was walking to Victoria Station and people literally began to back away from me. On another day, me and my dad were running in the park and a lady came up to us and started covering her mouth. She gazed at us wide-eyed and my dad had to tell the woman not to worry since we had been in the UK even before COVID had begun to spread.
My friends and I were just standing outside a supermarket when a white middle-aged man walked past us angrily. He looked at us and said, "You started the coronavirus," and left us in shock. Although we tried not to let this ruin our day by laughing it off and saying amongst ourselves that he was mean, all of us knew that it wasn't okay for him to do that, and we were honestly furious inside.
Someone once called me COVID, which was extremely hurtful and made me feel uncomfortable. It's definitely important to know that these jokes do actually hurt people and are racist. I go to a boarding school in the UK, and when I'm in a group of mostly white people, especially in majority white classes, it feels as if I'm being ignored and that they don't acknowledge me. There was also an experience that my family had when we were on holiday. We were sitting in a cafe and a few white women asked if we could separate so that they could sit together. But my mother said no and explained that we were a family, to which one of the women said that Chinese people are like that.
Studying abroad in the UK since I was 12, my family and relatives had always wanted me to blend into English culture. It turned out to be harder than I thought. When I began studying there, my English wasn't fluent and I was used to being quiet because Asian culture only considered students who stayed quiet as good and obedient. So when I arrived in the UK, I barely spoke in class. I was then pinned to the image of a quiet and clever Chinese student. They associated me with this image even before getting to know me, and the only reason they would ever talk to me was to copy off my homework. "Oh my god, you've done your prep? Can I copy yours?" At first I thought they were being genuinely nice to me, but then I realized they were just using me. When we were talking, a girl pointed at my favorite K-pop idol and said, "Ew, you put on makeup? He looks like an Oreo." When my friend spoke up and pointed out that what she said was racist, she laughed and said that it was just a joke. When we were at school, people think Asians are clever, Asians are good at math, but I don't feel like one of them. I wasn't at the advanced or top sets. A girl came up to me and asked what math set I was in, and she refused to believe I wasn't in the top sets. At one time, everyone also began to learn Chinese words. Girls would come up to me and say, "Nima," out of the blue, laughing it off and asking me if they said it correctly. They thought it was cool to swear in another language. Although I understand Mandarin, it isn't my first language, but they assumed I spoke Mandarin because I was Asian. When she first said that, I took it as a joke because I didn't want to be seen as boring, but now thinking back, I felt terrible that they were mocking other languages.
I often get snide and backhanded compliments such as, "Wow, your English is really good for an Asian," and "You're Asian, no wonder you're smart."
People assume that I'm a genius at math and that I'm smart, not because I study hard, but because I'm Asian. People tend to mix Thai and Taiwanese up quite a lot as well, and there have been a few times at school where people have joked about the Chinese virus.
When I first transferred schools, some classmates who I've never even had a proper conversation with asked me for my homework to copy. Me being desperate for friends and being one who can't say no gave them my homework to copy. But what they assumed was that I was smart, based on the fact that I'm Asian. When they got bad grades back, they made sneaky comments about me not living up to my smart Asian image and ghosted me afterwards.
When I go abroad, people look down at me and my family because they think we don't understand English or because they think that we can't afford to purchase some items. Usually, they give us the judging up and down look.
While I was in Korea walking down Hongdae Street, two teenagers began to point and laugh at me. I knew I looked different from most Koreans since I was noticeably one of the only brown-skinned people there, which was also how I knew the reason I was being laughed at. It felt terrible being looked down by someone for my appearance.
There's no right or wrong to this question, but I think every Asian can agree that the minute you're born, there are humongous amounts of stereotypes, expectations, and pressures that are enforced onto you. But at the same time, being Asian is about being part of the most diverse and prettiest cultures.
We all have different languages, cuisine, clothing, traditions, and so much to offer. Every country is unique, so the idea of generalizing all our cultures into one stereotype doesn't make sense.
I'm proud to be Asian because of the amazing and rich culture we have. Asia as a continent is equally as magnificent as any other continent and deserves to be respected and celebrated equally.
Everyone should be treated equally, despite their race or sexuality. Therefore, to hurt an innocent person because of their ethnicity is unacceptable.